So Greg and I have been together the better part of a decade, and we had always been told that we would never have children. So like I was cool. We were living life. Everything was great. And then one morning I was like, something doesn't feel right. And I was like, I'm just gonna take a test. But I was like, is this positive? And he was like, hang on, like rubbing the sleep out of his eyes. He's like, I don't know, because it was like one of the cheap dollar store ones. So I went to Meijer after school and I bought every brand, multi-pack, and I took every one of them. Because one test saying yes isn't enough. You have to have 12. Labor was, I was induced, and she took her sweet time. With 36 hours, we rocked with it until she got there. But when she came out, she was amazing. She was the best gift. I mean, it was literally like seeing into heaven when she came. It was, I mean, there's so much about that 36 hours, that divine amnesia that you don't remember, but I remember her being placed on my chest and Greg getting to be right there next to me with, and like, I just remember saying, she's beautiful. And I remember telling her, I'll take care of you. And little did I know that's how serious that was gonna be. Like, that's really been, that's been our motto, kind of, because she, the very next day we were at the hospital, everything was fine. The first day we had no idea what was coming. It was like the calm before the storm. I felt really good. My nurses were super impressed with, like, because I was up and moving and going and doing stuff, and they were like, you're here, so maybe you should relax and enjoy this until you get home. But I was so excited, and it still seems surreal. Like, I have a baby that came out of my body. That's mine. Like, I'm going home with that. Like, that's mine. That still sometimes doesn't feel real. But so the very first day and through the night, she was a perfect newborn. Nothing seemed wrong. They went to get her the second day, late morning, to take her to the nursery to do footprinting and the immunizations and everything that they do with a brand new baby. And when they brought her back, it was time to nurse again. So I did that. But I remember something just didn't feel right. And I just kind of chalked it up at first to, being away from her. I'd never been away from her until that point. So I remember looking down, and she was blue. Her lips, her eyes, all of it. And when you talk about God's timing and how perfect, but I said, Greg, something's not right. She's blue. A nurse came right in. And it was the one from the NICU part of the hospital, even though Springfield doesn't have like a NICU, they just call it the nursery. She came right in, and I said, something's not right, look at this baby. And she flipped the lights on, and then she grabbed her and immediately started like rubbing her back, trying to agitate her, took her straight down. From that point was like the beginning of like the end, so to speak, when we realized like she's really sick. But from that point, every single doctor, every nurse, every human that we interacted with was put specifically in our place or in our path to help Emmy. She spent, almost 2 full days in the nursery at Springfield before Greg was actually her biggest advocate. I remember feeling pretty numb about it. Like, it didn't make sense. Like, I couldn't really comprehend that she was sick like that. And poor Mackenzie was just super excited to be a big sister, but couldn't be at the hospital because of COVID. And then she's just kind of living Emmy's life through text message and FaceTime up until this point. And then Greg was like, no, we can't wait any longer. She needs to be transferred to Children's now, like yesterday now. And I remember it was a Thursday evening. And they're like, the transport team came and they're telling us all these things that are going to happen. And it just felt like being inside of like a whirlwind. And this nurse was like she's one of the nurses at Dayton's, but like it was like it's like she's part of the special transport team also. So like she goes back and forth. And I remember her saying, yeah, this baby is really sick. And she called doctors after our nurse gave report to their nurses about Emmy. And she's like, you're going to go home and you're going to pack a bag. You're going to grab something to eat through a drive-thru, and you're going to get yourself there.
Yeah. I remember being home the night that he texted me and said she's being transferred. And I just remember he told me that they would be home to like pack a bag, and then it was that quick. Like, they came home, threw clothes in a bag, not even like wondering if it was matching anything, just threw stuff in there and left. And I remember just going up to Emmy's room, like saying, like, God, like, please bring her home.
When we got there, we were kind of ushered upstairs, and
they gave her, at Springfield, before they transferred Emmy, they gave her like a Snuggie to
Oh,
put
yeah.
in her shirt to get the scent of her so she could have it in the NICU at Children's.
that's still in her bassinet now. They said, put this in your shirt so it has your scent on it. And that's when it felt real, like, I'm not going to be with her. I can't ride with her. I can't be. And that's kind of when I started falling apart. But Greg has been, and is always, but especially through that, was our rock. I mean, he advocated for Emmy. He was the one that said, no, we need to go right now. This is what she needs. And he never, sorry. This stuff, when it comes back, it's like, it's so real all over again. You know, the doctor said that if she had waited till Friday, when they had originally thought that was the original course of action, was to wait till Friday, that she might not have made it. So when Greg said that she needed to go Thursday, like, that's, you know, God's hand being there again. Sorry.
You're good. You can take a minute if you need to.
So we get there. It's like early hours in the morning, like stupid early. Nobody slept. And they're telling us, I mean, when we got there, she was already in like one of the encapsulations they were doing, x-rays, CAT scans, ultrasounds. They had tested her. When they're super little like that, they have to take blood out of her heel. So her little feet had Band-Aids all over the bottom. And then they sent us down the hallway, because seeing them doing that to my fresh baby, I couldn't. I mean, they were like, you have to pull it together. So I'm like, I can't talk to you. Like, I was literally sobbing. And so we went and sat in like a waiting room, and I remember Greg just held my hand and we prayed, which is still one of the best parts of that whole experience, was him taking my hand, and he never lets go, and being the head of our family and guiding us. And one of the scariest parts of being there that night was the doctor came down, and we had to do paperwork for what they call an LP, a lumbar puncture, to test, which we didn't want to do. We were super reluctant to do it because they're literally sticking a needle into her spine to get fluid out. And that was ended up being how we figured out that was the blessing. I mean, she didn't cry, she didn't move. She was the exception to the rule, which she has been her whole life. She was diagnosed with an infection in her spinal column, which there's no blood-brain barrier yet. When you're new like that, you have to develop it. So because it was in her spinal column, it traveled to her brain, which is why she was not breathing, why she was having seizures, because of the infection and her little tiny body not being able to fight it. So they found that, which was amazing, because at least we had an answer then. We had no idea why all of this was happening. And that was like a super bittersweet, because sweet, we know what it is. We can fix this. She's going to be okay. Bitter, because you're going to be here for 3 weeks. So it did get a little bit worse before it got better. I remember.
I mean, I thought I'd ask that doctor if she was going to die or not. I mean, she was that bad.
It was, yeah, she was so sick that, and I still think about that sometimes. I mean, that's a question that I don't know if I'll ever be able to unhear. Or you're sitting with your child and the father of your child, and to have to ask a question like that is really heavy, because like I said, I felt kind of numb. Like it didn't make sense that she was that sick. Like, she's a newborn, they're weird, they have weird ins and outs. This is nothing, like she'll bounce out of it. And I guess I was kind of optimistic, like stupidly optimistic in the first place. It didn't click. Sorry. That she was, and then he said that, and I don't remember thinking, I wasn't like, why me? But I was thinking, please God, don't take her. I worked so hard And I never thought that I was going to have this blessing. Please don't take her yet. I'm not ready yet. I remember I just kept saying, please, not yet. And then every day it was like another, like, okay, we made it, like, it was like making it to another level. Like, okay, we've made it another day. But it wasn't always better. Like, it was like another day, but then there was like another mountain to climb.
It did get better
It did.
after
That's
a
right.
week and a half. But the Friday we went in there, I probably didn't sleep for 2 days.
Yeah.
I mean, because it was about every 5 minutes she would quit breathing. And I would get up and, I'd have to stir her to get her to start breathing again. And I'd no more turn and sit down, and the monitors would go off and she quit breathing again. So I pretty much just stood at her side and just kept stirring her every time the monitors would go. So, and you couldn't hardly get to her. They had so much equipment around her. You had to like reach through and to touch her or hold her hand. But then eventually one piece would leave. She'd get better. Another piece would leave. And we got to where we could hold her, but she had so many wires hanging off of her. You just had to be real careful.
Yeah, you could pick
But
her
then-
up. I'm sorry, go ahead.
But then those started to disappear too as she got better. Then eventually it was just the PICC line, and I held her every chance I could get all night. I'd sit and hold her and let her sleep, and vice versa. But she's doing good now.
He's so modest. He wouldn't just let me sleep. We took turns. Like, Emmy was never not once we could hold her. She was probably close to 2 weeks before we could start picking her up and holding her again because of everything. And they would encourage us to hold her, but there was so much that, like, you felt like you were going to break her. Like, she was like a China doll. And so we didn't for like the first week that she was in there because she was like encapsulated. And he never left her side. When he says that, I would stand there with her. No, he was like, he was her shepherd. He was her daddy. I had just given birth. I tried so hard to stay awake too, but I had that wall and I had to lay down. And I remember crying myself to sleep because I was like, I should be up there with him, but I couldn't do it anymore. I had to lay down. He never complained. He never said, oh God, I'm tired. You never heard anything out of him. Never, I need water, I'm hungry, I gotta go potty, nothing. He never left her.
Stuff around her.
They gave her on her little goggles for when she was under the blue lights. They put lashes on.
They did. They were like, just because she's sick doesn't mean she can't be fabulous. And that was kind of the turning point, really. Because I was like, that's right. You need to dust yourself off, put some mascara on, because you have got this.
She is fabulous.
She is. She started defying odds. They were like, we're going to give her this amount of time for these results that we expect. And she was like, too easy. Got it. And then, the next day or so, it was like no sooner did they say it, she would hear it, and then it would be better. She, her last week and a half, she was there, and that was another thing I should have said. They did a PICC line, which is like an IV except like heavy duty. It goes straight into the vein so that, I think that's the way I understood it, so that she can't pull it out. It lasts longer, because if they'd just done regular IVs, it would have to be replaced every couple days, and all of the meds were intravenous, so that was easiest for her. But her last week and a half, she still had the PICC because she had to, because of the medicine, but nothing else. She didn't have to be, all of the regulations that they have in the NICU, Emmy didn't apply to them. They were like, no, Emmy, when they give a report every day, they're like, well, okay, everything that you learned and everything we do on this floor doesn't apply to her. And that became our running joke. Emmy was the VIP. This was Emmy's room, and it's essentially like a hotel for her. So, Greg brought up a valid point, because we live kind of by Dayton's, and that's another blessing. I'm not from this area. I'm from 45 minutes east of Chicago, and so our closest children's hospital is either an hour away in downtown Chicago or 2 hours away in Indy. So had I not listened to God when I had gotten the urge for us, I felt it called on my heart so hard that we needed to be here for Mackenzie and stuff, like the weekend stuff wasn't cutting it anymore. Like I knew that she needed us here. So we made the move, and you talk about God working in your life and how timing, I mean, this could have been a totally different outcome had we been back in Indiana when if this had happened at all. I totally lost my train of thought. Oh, with being so close to Dayton Children's, you drive past it going to Dayton all the time, and you just think, oh, another building. You never in a million years think, oh, I'm gonna camp out there. That Greg had brought that valid point up, because you drive past it and you're like, I'm really glad that that's there, and
I've delivered there for years, trucking. Never dreamed I'd be hanging out there for 3 weeks.
Yeah, I'm sure you look at the building all different now.
Right.
I broke my arm when I was 5, and that's the exact same hospital I was in. I mean, it's like there's like new sections, new doctors, and everything, but it's the same hospital I was in where I got treated.
Little.
How amazing all the staff was.
Yeah, at Dayton's
24/7.
Truly, you hear stories from hospitals all the time of like, you didn't mesh with whoever, but everyone was incredible. Springfield and at Dayton's, they treated us and Emmy both like we're family. They treated her like that was her own baby, their own. You just can't say enough. When it started getting serious, Corey, who goes to church with us also, she's a labor and delivery nurse on the postpartum side. The census wasn't high enough. She was only on call, and she was like, I'll come in if you assign me to Jasmine's room. And it was so cool because she just came in early to work, and she prayed with us and hugged me, and she was like, we're going to take care of it. Like, everything's going to be just fine. We're going to get that baby fine. And she was never wrong. Everything that she said, okay, this is what to expect, or this is what's going to happen, or I would text her when I had questions about things, and she's like, this is what this means. And she made us a blanket that had been prayed over that said has traveled, like Sisterhood of the Traveling Plants, but like this is like the blessing blanket. And she got it to us right before Emmy's second lumbar puncture, which they had to do before we could leave to make sure that the infection was gone. When you wrap her in that blanket, even still, it's like the blessings are palpable. Like you can feel it, like she knows. And it's just this real pretty light pink crocheted blanket, but it's heavy like a quilt with love. That's incredible. Through all of this too, I mean, you talk about feeling like a tornado, like you're here, but you're not. And our family, our church family, I mean, people that we don't even know lifted us up in prayer, and that truly, I believe, got us through. I can't, like when we would talk about it, and whenever somebody would send a prayer to Emmy, like we would read it over her so that she would know, like, you have to keep fighting because there's so many people counting on you to make it. And the love and support that we received is just, you can't even put it in words. I mean, even still, like, going to church today and seeing everyone, that was so exciting to be there, and finally to have Emmy there, not just in my belly, because you read all the books and they say to read to your kid, but I didn't have time to read, but I have time to sing. I can sing anywhere. So I always sang to Emmy, and even, I knew she was going to be a blessing even when I was pregnant, because worship music was always her favorite. And she would just kind of bop in there. And now when she's out, when she's fussing and I've got her in her little boppy seat in the kitchen so I can do dishes or make a meal, you put worship music on and she's like, okay, this is cool, I can be by myself. Kenzie had introduced me to the song Waymaker, and then we started singing it at church also, and that's still to this day her favorite. I mean, you put that on and she's like a grown-up. I had prayed diligently probably for the past year before Emmy had even become Emmy to see God's hand, to have a God moment. And I realize now, instead of feeling like, why me? Why is this happening? He had her the whole time. And that was showing, that's my proof. I mean, to be able to conceive, carry her have a healthy baby and then to go through the obstacles that she did and to come out. I mean, Emmy's healthy. Emmy's normal look. If you saw her on the street, you'd never know that Emmy had the beginning that she did. I feel like before Emmy, I was a lukewarm Christian that just kind of, I went and I liked to sing the songs and I loved to socialize and fellowship, but now the services mean more. I dig deeper. I feel like I saw his hands in motion. You can't, it was like a slap in the face positively. If you like wake up, like I'm here, I'm real, and I'm taking care of you if you just lean into me. And I did. I mean, people would tell me all the time, your strength, I'm so proud of you. And I was like, I love praise, but that is my love language. But I would say this isn't me, this is all God. I couldn't be where I am if not for him. He carries us. The prayer was so constant and incredible that it felt like a quilt. I mean, nurses would say that like when you walk in Emmy's room, you could tell like it was like different. And it was the prayers we would speak over her. It was God there with us, sitting through those hours. It was the church family. I mean, it was you couldn't ask for better. You can't ask for better than Maiden Lane. And when you hear about that and the way they say better together, that is truly live, love, serve. Our family breathes that now, because that is what our church truly, I mean, you don't just say it, you live it. And we're living proof of that. And I honestly, of all the places, I was still more, I was so excited to get her to church. I should have been more excited just to get her home. I mean, yes, I was excited to get her home, but I was like, do you think we could go to church this Sunday? And he was like, pump the brakes, sister. Like, maybe give it a couple weeks. I mean, incredible. I could never say enough. And I've sat and I've thought of words and I've thought, like, what would I say in that interview to express my gratitude, our gratitude, Emmy's gratitude. I mean, from every angle, I mean, there's just not enough. That just abounding, overflowing gratitude for this family, because
there's no words on thanking everybody
right.
for the blessings and the prayers and the gifts. It's unbelievable.
Every Sunday, I skipped a few Sundays and stayed home and like took care of the dogs and just stayed home. And when I started coming back, well, the first Sunday I came back, it was the service. Mark did the huge prayer in front of the church, and I lost it. I mean, like, I cried, but like I don't cry in public, and I cried. And then every Sunday after that, because he announced that like I was Emmy's sister, every Sunday I would come home with a gift or two. Every Sunday. This was the first Sunday it hasn't happened. I was like, oh my.
I mean, it's not even about the gifts, though. It's the fact that people take time out of their day to think of us. That, to me, it blows my mind. How people still, I mean, she's home, and I feel like, everybody's life is busy, and it just keeps going, but nobody's ever failed to be like, oh, are you okay? Do you need anything? Yeah. What do you need? And I tell them, like, and it's still true, like, your prayers are really, that's all we need. We don't need or want for anything. Just keep praying for us, and you can feel it. You can see God work in our life. I mean, like, Greg being out of work, his boss called and said, while we were in the hospital so that he could be there, he said, your family needs you. I'm just gonna, continue to do what you're doing even though you're not working. You are doing the right thing. You need to be with your family, be with them. You don't hear things like that ever. I mean, our landlords were like, you know what, Emmy needs that money this month. And yeah, just stuff like it. Incredible, unspeakable acts of kindness that more than I've ever felt like I've deserved. And then people just give it freely, like, yeah, Jazz, this is your family. Like, you got Greg and Jasmine, like, that's, yeah, they're family. They just get them. I mean, like, and then it was like everybody that has at church knew somebody that put us on a prayer. I mean, it was like the whole country. There were people like, oh, there's people in Florida and Washington and Maine and all over, and people that would message me on Facebook when I would post Emmy updates, that I was like, hey, do you know such and such? She's like, I've never heard of that name in my life. We had no idea who these people were, but they're like, we love you, God loves you, we're praying for you, and your little girl's going to be fine. And that was super cool. And like, I'd read stuff to him, and like, I'd have to like wait until we were in our specific room at the hospital and not like in a common area, because I cried so much. But it was always positive. I mean, I know that it's supposed to be like graves to gardens, but when you look back at it, it's so hard to remember like the bad part.
That's what we kept saying too when he was there. This will all be in the past soon. And
Flowers
everything
grow
will be
on
good.
vines.
I would say the only thing that was really hard for her through her stay, like once she had made her turning point, was so like in the NICU, because a lot of them are preemies, you're not allowed to eat or drink or anything in their room. There's a common like family area out in the front that's like away from them, because the smells and the sounds and all that, they want it quiet and sterile, because most of them that are in there, because they're so new, so they would still be gestational, they wouldn't have any of those smells or sounds or anything around them yet. So we were on our way back from having like our midnight snack and there was a chopper getting ready to land. And I mean, she's already like totally fine. She's just finishing up her round of antibiotics at this point. And I remember crying in that same alcove where we sat that very first night, because it just hits you just that fast again, like those poor people. I remember being there and that helpless, hopeless feeling like, is my baby gonna make it? Like, what am I doing here? How did this happen? How did I get here? Like, she was perfect, and then she wasn't. And it's crazy, because that's life. I mean, it was just that fast. Like, she was great. She was awesome. No, she's not.
Yeah.
But I had always felt like the kind of Christian that, like, I believe in God. John 3:16, like, I get it, and I know, and I believe it, and I can tell you what it means. But I was always kind of, as I said before, lukewarm, and I was always afraid to like speak that truth for fear of, offending someone or being made fun of, but then when I saw him working, I mean, I know that he always works in our lives, but when I, realized what was really truly happening and see him working in our lives, and he saved our little girl, I wanted to like shout from rooftops. Like, this is our God. He's so big, and it doesn't matter how far you've run or what you've done, you are forgiven, and he loves you. And I would post things on Facebook that was God related, and I never did that before. And I had girlfriends that, were, living the same way I was, that, like, you knew that was right, but you're not living in it, that were like, you've revived my faith. And I've had people come to me that, didn't have the upbringing, didn't have the background, anything, and they're like, because of you, I'm curious about God. Because of Emmy, I believe that he exists. Yes. I speak those truths over her. I tell her that, and she does that. It's like she knows. I truly believe that,
She's
they do.
Waymaker in her head.
She comes from heaven, and that she picked us. I don't know why yet, but she picked us, and she's destined for greatness. And when you say stuff like this, even though she can't communicate it back, like, she knows, like, yeah, that's my guy. God is, like, I'll be back there someday. And I think that's her way of saying, like, that's right, Mama, tell him. When I said I speak truth over her, I tell her, Jesus loves you, Mommy loves you, Daddy loves you, Sissy loves you. And then I'll tell her that, she's courageous, she's strong, she's capable. And then whenever we talk, we sing, like the Sunday school songs, like Jesus loves me, this I know, and stuff. She does the same thing. It's like she knows that that's her truth. And I believe that story, even though it happened to her so early, she's going to carry that, and she's going to be able to tell people, like, I'm here because of God. I am a miracle.
Just that he's a great God, and he gives us many blessings. I got 3 of them now.
I was like also like lukewarm. Like, I believed and I wanted to learn more, and I wanted to like dig deeper, but I didn't know how. And like seeing like the prayers like that were sent to them, or like the Facebook comments, and like her progress through the whole thing, it's just like this wouldn't have happened on its own. Like God is behind this. Sorry. All right.
I had actually one of her grandmas tell me, God would never bring you this far to only bring you this far. And that was kind of something that I clung to when Grandma Roxanne told me that. You know what? She's right. He wouldn't, and he would never take you into the deep waters if he had no plan to leave you there. So I clung to him, and here she is on the other side.